Hey everybody, it is Alex here. Welcome back to the podcast. We're going to do things a little different today. We do have some episodes with guests on the queue, but there's been a lot of big things happening on the federal land agenda, specifically dealing with the controversial land sale amendment to the House Natural Resources budget with some very recent good news. So today's episode is just going to focus on what happened with that House Natural Resources budget, what it could have meant for public land and public land access, and how conservation and sportsman groups help protect the public lands that were very close to being sold off. So for those of us who aren't aware, there was a recent political maneuver that came very close to changing the face of America's public lands. There was a proposed amendment in the federal budget bill that actually aimed to sell off vast tracts of public land, specifically in Utah and Nevada, but luckily after a pretty big surge of public outcry, and rightfully so, in some bipartisan resistance, this amendment was removed prior to the passing of that budget. So let's unpack this and kind of break it down and see how everything played out and why it played out the way it did. So earlier this month, and I'm going to butcher this name, so please forgive me, Representatives Mark Amodei of Nevada and Celeste Maloy of Utah, they introduced kind of a late-stage amendment to the House Budget Reconciliation Bill. This provision actually sought to mandate the sale of approximately 500,000 acres of federal land in both Nevada and Utah, including areas adjacent to Zion National Park. Now, this isn't, what one would term wasteland. This is, critical buffer land around the national park, and also is a mule deer and mountain lion habitat. Not surprisingly, critics argued, rightfully so, again, in my opinion, that the amendment bypassed certain standard procedures. It was lacking environmental reviews and public input. The proposed sales, as amended in the bill, were to be exempt from the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, which raised a lot of concerns about transparency and environmental oversight, or I guess in this case, lack thereof. So almost immediately, the amendment sparked backlash from conservation groups, outdoor enthusiasts, and lawmakers. Organizations like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers condemned the move right from the start, stating that it undermined bipartisan land sales safeguards while eroding public trust. And I would agree on both of those counts. This seemed to be a bit of a sneaky way to undercut public opinion and sell off public land for private gain. Environmentalists warned that the amendment could set a dangerous precedent, basically turning public lands into short-term revenue sources without guarantees for conservation or public benefit, which in my mind inherently is just wrong. And luckily, Montana Republican Ryan, I believe it's Zinke or Zink, one of the two, Z-I-N-K-E, he stated in a press release that he does not support the widespread sale or transfer of public lands, stating that once that land is sold, we will never get it back. God isn't creating more land. Public access, sportsmanship, grazing, tourism is all connected to public lands. End of quote. So we're lucky that we have individuals like Ryan at the federal level that recognize what this amendment could do to public land and public trust. So basically, as soon as it was discovered, as soon as the amendment was discovered, these groups, similar groups to bow hunters of Wyoming, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, National Wildlife Federation, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, Sierra Club, so on and so forth, kind of rallied their members, got their petitions underway, social media campaigns. I'm sure for you guys listening, you've seen numerous social media posts about this amendment, and they started calling the reps on Capitol Hill, and it worked. So in the face of this continuous pressure from the public and from these conservation groups, a bipartisan effort eventually emerged to remove that land sale provision from the bill. So that's where Montana Representative Ryan, I'm just going to call him Zink at this point, and I'll correct it later, that Republican, and he was actually the former Interior Secretary. He basically threatened to impose the entire bill if the amendment remained. So the negotiations drug on well into the night, and the revised bill did end up passing narrowly, 215 to 214, with the land sale language stripped. So that's the important part, and that's the big win for us, because that was very close to setting a dangerous precedent where public land sales could be almost snuck into these bills without public knowledge or proper federal guidelines such as NEPA. So I guess while the removal of that amendment was a victory for us as bow hunters and as public land advocates, concerns are still going to persist. I mean, I think everyone would agree that just because these amendments were removed from this bill doesn't mean that this whole movement, I guess, is done. There's going to be future bills, there's going to be future amendments, and there's going to be future attempts to sell public land. And while it's true that we are bow hunters of Wyoming, Utah and Nevada are very close to us. They are both western states. They both have strong hunting communities. And what happens in those states could very easily happen in our Wyoming. So I guess it's unfortunate that this episode kind of underscores the ongoing tension between development interests and conservation efforts. But it does also highlight the importance of being vigilant and public engagement when it comes to protecting our public lands. Sadly, it seems that public lands have always been a bit of a political battlefield, and it's disappointing to see how sometimes lawmakers try to pass these changes in a, I guess, sneaky manner. One could almost call it privatization by stealth, which to me is just inherently wrong because those lands are public. So it is a good reminder, though, that when we consolidate our efforts together and we work with these conservation groups such as the Sierra Club, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, we can win and we can make positive changes. The fight for public lands is never over, and as far as we can see, it's never going to be over. But with enough voices, with enough consolidation of effort, with enough communication, I believe it's one we can win. And I believe that stripping that amendment from this bill is a perfect example of that. So while this episode was a little different than our normal ones, I did feel that this was a pretty important topic to bring to light. And I wanted to make sure that our members are aware of what's going on at the federal level and how our public lands are always at risk. And it's up to groups such as Bow Hunters of Wyoming and all the other ones mentioned earlier that kind of keeps public lands in public hands where it belongs. So with that being said, I do want to remind everyone that we are still having our Commissioner Tag raffle for our second Commissioner Tag. Now this raffle is a little different than the first one. There are unlimited tickets in this raffle, and you can still buy them up till May 31st. So May 31st is the deadline. If you didn't draw your dream tag, I know the out-of-state results are in. If you're an out-of-stater and you did not draw your Wyoming elk tag, you've got another chance. So these are going to be $50 a piece. The drawing's on June 2nd. The winner does not need to be present, and all proceeds go back to conservation projects in the state of Wyoming. There hasn't really been a ton of tickets sold yet, so the odds are fairly good. Sometimes we'll see big bulk purchases of tickets, and we really haven't seen that yet. So if you're thinking about buying one, I would recommend to do it. I think now is a pretty good time. The odds are pretty good. So we hope to see you buy some tickets. We hope to see you support Bow Hunters of Wyoming in these conservation projects. And while we did win with this amendment being removed from that bill, it is a sobering reminder that nothing's guaranteed. Public access to public lands is not a guarantee. As much as we feel that it should be, and as much as we, I guess, almost take it for granted, not saying that we all do, but it's hard not to when it's something you were born and raised with and you're so used to. It's important to remember that it's not always a guarantee, and it's up to us as sportsmen and conservationists to work together to ensure that we maintain our public access, not only for us, but more importantly for the generations that follow us, that are going to follow in our footsteps and hunt and fish. Thanks for listening. You can find us at bowhuntersofwyoming.org. If you want to get a hold of us, send us an email at info@bowhuntersofwyoming.org, or you can contact me directly at president@bowhuntersofwyoming.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, Bowhunters of Wyoming. I'll go ahead and put a link in the show notes where you can buy the raffle ticket or become a member if you so choose. And I hope everyone draws what they put in for. We'll find out very shortly. So good luck to everyone in the draw, and good luck to everyone who's out there chasing spring bear. I know I've been running my bait. Hopefully I'll get out tomorrow and sit. So thanks again, everybody. If you have any questions or need anything, find our contact info in the show notes and get a hold of us. Appreciate it.